Hello, my name is Brett Linden. That handsome guy taking a bath on the beanbag behind me, his name is Dante. In this video, I will be talking about the book $1,000,000 Cup of Water by Adam Mark Smith. I'm going to disclose something right away. I made notes before recording this video and will largely be reading from those notes. Reading this book, as well as the book's predicate incident, conjured up many thoughts and many different reactions for me. To make this video even anything close to coherent, I had to write down all my thoughts and then organize them before being able to make a video that isn't all over the place. So, if parts of the video look like I'm reading, it's probably because I am. I ask for your patience and forgiveness with this. Oh, and disclaimer, these are my opinions. What I say here does not necessarily reflect the opinion of anyone else or any other entity of any kind. I'm speaking just for me here. Further, I'm making this video on my own time, with my own equipment, and using bandwidth at my own expense. Alright, good, got that out of the way. Now, you may be asking yourself, why a review on this book now? Well, that's a good question. After all, the chicken incident, as Smith refers to it in his book, happened in 2012. This book was released in March of 2015, going on 4 years ago now. So, why now? Well, I always had a sort of morbid curiosity about this incident and the book, and I wanted to read what Smith had to say about it in his book. But I didn't want to purchase the book because I didn't want to give Smith even 1 penny of my money. It wasn't until about a month ago that my wife surprised me with this book. I expressed concern to her, reiterating that I didn't want to buy the book because I didn't want to give Smith any money. She assured me that she found it on the used market. I'm guessing it took her over 3 years to be able to do that. So, since I only finished reading this book roughly a couple weeks ago, that's the biggest reason I'm not talking about it until now. Part of what fuels my interest in this case is that I live in Tucson. This is where the chicken incident happened. Smith lived here at the time, and I believe he said he's native to Tucson. That's part of what compelling me to make this video, I guess. Also, part of my compulsion to make this video is my belief that at least 90% of the people who discuss this book online didn't even read it. I believe that both his supporters and detractors use fake reviews to either bash Smith or blow him. Not me. As you can see, I actually possess a copy of the book, and I read it cover to cover. Because of all the fake reviews, or what I believe to be fake reviews, I feel somewhat of a responsibility to give you a legit review from someone who doesn't know Smith and actually took time to read the book. Initially, after reading the book, I had the idea to make this video. Then once I saw Smith as a Facebook like page named after the book, I thought, I'll just share my thoughts about the book with him on the book's like page. I'm not sure how he did this, probably because I don't run a like page myself, but he managed to delete my post within about 5 minutes of my posting it, yet he still managed to respond to it. I don't get how that's possible, but whatever. I confronted him on his deleting my post from his page, and he states, yes, it's not the dialogue I'm looking for on this page. Asshole, the page is about the book. You named the damn thing after the book. You're telling me you don't want to talk about the book on a page that's about the book? How the fuck does that work? What I posted on that page was a fair assessment of his book and my reaction to it. Yeah, that's a cat. Sorry about that. The Calico Kitty is Jasmine, and she's young and has a lot of energy, and Dante sometimes takes to that, sometimes doesn't. Anyway, back to the book. Yeah, my review, I wasn't bashing him. It was civil. Yet he decided to take it down because I wasn't kissing his ass. In my mind, that action right there shows you what kind of guy he still is today. I don't like being censored, so the video is back on. He can't take this down. I'm going to readjust here. In addition to discussing his book, I'll also be referencing parts of Smith's response to my thoughts about this book. Before I begin talking about the book itself, I just want to state that I won't be going too far into the Chick-Fil-A incident. If you found this video, then you also watched the infamous video that Smith made. You mostly likely saw the follow-up apology video that Smith put up a couple days later. You know much of the fallout, and if you don't, it's not that difficult to find. So I won't be rehashing that stuff too much here. Also, in the interest of fairness, I want to disclose a few things about my mindset going in, as, in all candor, these things may have served to bias me somewhat. First off, I don't like social justice warriors, or, as I call them, the thought police. These types of people who label someone racist or hateful just because someone sees something different than they do, or, God forbid, disagree. Based on what he said in the car while waiting for his car at Chick-Fil-A, I believe Smith to be one of the thought police. I also believe that protesting has lost all meaning in the 21st century. In the era of social media, there's always someone bitching about something on a daily basis. The latest trendy target of the thought police seems to change every few days, and very rarely do any of these so-called cases have any merit. Protests meant something once, but today it's all just noise. Pro or con, on any issue, if you know full well that you're not going to change anyone's mind about the issue, then you're just wasting time and being annoying. Far too many in this country just can't accept the fact that not everyone is going to agree with them. Smith, based on his actions and statements, I believe is one of these people. Also, I thought at the time that the entire Chick-fil-A story was the stupidest mass media story of 2012 and the second stupidest mass media story of this decade, second only to that Occupy idiocy that occurred in 2011, another so-called protest that had absolutely zero positive effect on anything. When I say the Chick-fil-A controversy was stupid, I mean from both sides. They were equally stupid. If I had kids and they were arguing over the Chick-fil-A controversy, I would send them both to their rooms and tell them to stay there until they both feel bad about themselves for ever getting worked up over something so stupid. All right. Now I'm finally going to talk about the book. Structurally, the book, it was sound. For most part, it was a very easy read. Forgot how many pages it is. It looks like 246. I got through it in roughly a week, reading just a chapter or two before bed each night. Smith split the story up into 3 parts: his life up until the chicken incident itself, and his life after the chicken incident up to when he published a book. The book was proofed well. There were some errors, but they were few and minor. Certainly nothing to compromise my ability to read and absorb the book. Smith was kind of losing me in the 3rd part of the book when he was talking about this lame journal writing class he took. He included many of his journal entries, and they were really boring. But I held on and I got through them. That aside, the rest of the book kept my attention. First part of the book, he speaks of a heart-wrenchingly impoverished childhood being raised by religious zealots. A lot of the things he wrote about, I could relate to. My parents weren't religious, but I too came up very impoverished. It was just me and my mother, and she was pretty much chronically unemployed from the time she divorced my father when I was 6 until I was about 12. And even after that, there wasn't a lot of money in the household. So trust me, I know childhood poverty, and I know it all too well. Some of these stories he tells in his book are very depressing, especially about his having to dumpster dive for food. But there were a couple of inconsistencies in this part of the book. He speaks of participating in Little League, and he also speaks of going to Palo Verde Christian School, or PVC as it's known around town. My understanding is Smith is a Tucson native and grew up here. I'm not a Tucson native, but I moved here as a 6-year-old in August of 1980. I've been here ever since. So I think I know the town pretty well. PVC is in an affluent part of town, and it's understood around the community that you don't go there unless your family has money and a lot of it. Again, I grew up very poor. There was never any money for anything like a Little League. In private school, just fucking forget it. I didn't even have enough to get what I needed to make public school tolerable until I was about 12. And this coming from my growing up an only child. I believe Smith said he came from a family of 8. Where the fuck did all this money for private school come from? In the beginning of this video, I mentioned that I briefly dialogued with Smith a few days ago. I asked him about this inconsistency. He didn't respond to the Little League part of it, but he did talk a little bit about PVC. I want this video to be fair, so I'll tell you what he said, and I'll quote it directly. Here it is. This is Adam Smith's quote. Yes, my family went to PVC, a private school. PVC gave significant discounts to my family and, at times, did not collect on the tuition they did charge us. My parents valued their religion, at times, more than food. This was a choice they made. The fact remains that when we first started going to PVC, I was rummaging through the garbage to feed my family. All right, and end Adam Smith's quote. All right, maybe. I only know of PVC by reputation, and sometimes reputations get distorted, I get that. So I'm not saying I believe him here, but I'll also say I know of nothing to disprove what he's saying. So for this point, I guess I'll give Smith the benefit of the doubt and move on. The second part of the book, the chicken incident itself. After reading the book, I'm still not clear on what he was thinking. He was upset because Chick-Fil-A CEO Dan Cathy was donating money to causes that Smith perceived to be anti-gay. Alright, I get he was upset about that, but what I don't get is how he came to the decision that why did he do this? First off, I'm just not seeing how he thought that what he was going to accomplish by chastising someone at the very bottom of the company for decisions made by someone at the very top of the company. Did Smith really think that Cathy was just going to see the video and say, well, some rich guy with a small penis berated one of my employees and posted the tirade on social media, so I shouldn't donate to the same people anymore? Give me a fucking break. What I think Smith demonstrated that day, aside from his low character, is that either he possesses a very unrealistic view of how the world works, or he grossly overestimates his own importance to society. Cathy can donate his money to whoever he wants. Smith can choose not to spend his money wherever he chooses. That's how money works. I'm very disappointed that a financial guy doesn't understand the concept of vote with your feet. Smith should understand the concept better than most people, and it's a shame he doesn't. What's also a shame is that Smith, and far too many others like him, don't understand the concept that there are those in the world that see things differently. We have a right to disagree with one another. Just because someone sees something differently than you doesn't necessarily make them hateful, as Smith kept calling Chick-Fil-A, especially when he was sitting in the car waiting for his free water. If someone doesn't agree with you, that's okay. Rant about it on your Facebook or blog or tweet it or make a YouTube video like I am right here or tell your friends. But don't go to the place and be rude to someone who had absolutely zero to do with whatever it is you're upset about. Alright, now I want to make a side rant to Adam Smith really quick. You owe an apology to everyone who was in line behind you at Chick-Fil-A that day. You made them wait roughly 3 minutes longer than was necessary for them to get their order so you could throw your tantrum. Were I in line behind you, I would have been pissed at you just for that. Don't forget, the First Amendment also guarantees a right to peaceably assemble. In my mind, that means your right to protest ends with my right to go on about my business. I should not be inconvenienced in any way because of someone else's tantrum. To Smith, and all of you think of yourselves as activists, your crybaby shit ain't got nothing to do with me. So there's no reason I should be held up because you're acting out. Yeah, you have a right to free speech, but I'm under absolutely no obligation to give a shit about what it is you're protesting that week. You can have all the free speech you want, but I get to use the roads that my taxes paid for whenever I want. Alright? Alright, now that my side rant is over, I want to return to the subject of apology. A couple days after the chicken incident, Smith uploaded an apology video referencing Rachel, the first name of the woman who he berated at Chick-Fil-A. He repeats the apology in his book. I don't believe for one moment that his apology has any sort of sincerity. I believe he was making the apology to save his job and maybe his reputation, and I don't know what the hell else. Had his apology video ended about 3 minutes and 55 seconds in, I'd consider it. But it didn't. It went on with his excuses and his rationalizations and his dismissing of Rachel as, directly quoting, collateral damage. Sincere apologies don't include any of those things. Sincere apologies are made by people who are owning up to their actions and are expressing sincere remorse for them. Smith has yet to do either of these things about the chicken incident. From my perspective, the apology video was far more sickening than the video of the actual chicken incident. At least the chicken incident, I believe he was sincere. The apology video was a pack of lies and insulting to Rachel and anyone else who watched the video, really. Hold on, I gotta take a drink before this part, because it ain't gonna be easy for me. I am forced to, at least partially, defend Smith here. The reason I'm defending Smith here is because I feel he shouldn't have been fired from his job over what happened. I know that sounds strange, but hear me out. As far as I can tell, at the time of the chicken incident, Smith was on his own time, away from his employer's property, using his own vehicle. He was not wearing any clothing that identified his employer on it in the video. He made no mention of his employer in the video or even said what he did for a living. And as sickening as Smith's actions were at Chick-Fil-A, they were in no way illegal. The reason I say he shouldn't be fired, because of what he did at Chick-Fil-A, had zero to do with his company or his job. I bring this up not so much to defend Smith as I am defending all of us. I feel very strongly that all of us should be able to say whatever we want or do whatever we want, within reason, on our own time without having to worry about whether or not we'll have the job the next day because of it. I'm not suggesting we shouldn't have consequences for our actions, but there are boundaries, and responsible businesses respect those boundaries. I feel firing someone over something not work-related is crossing a boundary. Or to put it simply, if you're not paying me, you don't get to tell me what I can and can't do, and especially not what I can and cannot say. My time is my own. Alright, with that said, I'm going to contradict what I just said perhaps a little. If Smith were working for me when the chicken incident went down, I probably would have fired him too. I would have fired Smith not to punish him, or because of any perceived threats to my business or its reputation, or because of online lynch mob assholes leaving me voicemails. I would have fired Smith just because he's an asshole. Anyone who gets this worked up over something so trivial is mentally unstable, to say the least. Not exactly the kind of guy I want around my shop. And, I just spoke of boundaries. Smith crossed a boundary when he headed his Chick-Fil-A that fateful morning. The video showed what kind of guy he is, and I don't want that kind of guy working for me. I don't want to have to always be figuratively looking over my shoulder at work. I mean, what if I make a financial donation to a political candidate that Smith doesn't like? What's he going to do to me? Is he going to publicly berate one of my employees? Speaking of my employees, how is he going to react if one of his coworkers brings Chick-Fil-A to the shop for lunch? How's that going to go over? I don't want to have to be worrying about this stuff from day to day. So when I say I would have fired Smith, if you're working for me, it's because of that, not to punish him for what he did. And for all I know, Vontae agrees with my reasoning, and that's how they came to the decision to fire Smith. To be clear, I have no idea why Vontae fired Smith, or even if it actually happened. I mean, I'm sure it happened, but I don't know for certain. I'm just taking Smith's words for things here, whatever that's worth. But I do believe Smith was fired from Vontae. To the best of my knowledge, Vontae has never put their side of the story on record, and I get that. They probably didn't want to be mixed up in this any more than they already were. I have no idea what Vontae is like, what their values are, or how they make their personnel decisions, or how they do business. I just wanted to state that because I want to clarify. I'm not trying to imply otherwise, and I want to keep this video as fair as I possibly can. Smith then, in the book, goes on to tell awful stories of what people did to him after the Chick-Fil-A incidents. These stories shocked me and sickened me, and even served to make me sympathize with Smith somewhat. To all of you who acted out against Smith's wife and children to respond to the Chick-Fil-A incident, when you make me sympathize with a guy like Smith, you're doing it very, very wrong. Now, here again, I'm taking Smith's word for it, but knowing how online lynch mobs are, I believe him when he described the fallout he and his family endured. If Smith's stories are true, then to those people who targeted Smith's wife and children and employer, I say that you are the exact same kind of asshole that Smith is. Involving his wife and children in this is abhorrent and it is reprehensible. Smith's wife and children, they did nothing wrong. Well, his wife picked an asshole for a husband, but that's all she did wrong. The kids didn't even do that wrong, all right? As far as I'm concerned, with an asshole like Smith, you could do whatever you want to him, so long as it's not libelous, not slanderous, and it's within the confines of the law or even in the gray areas of the law. In most cases, you're not going to get any criticism from me. But to involve his family and his children was unfair, it was unjust, it was absolutely inexcusable, and they were the actions of just some horribly, absolutely horrible people. I can't believe... Yeah. The third part of the book was the most painful to read. No, not heart-wrenching, but more sickening. The part that was largely about Smith looking for his next job. Before I continue, I'll disclose something else about myself. I know all too well what long-term unemployment is like. I went through 6 years of absolute hell where no one would give me the opportunity to work at a job befitting my skills and experience. I know the emotions and feelings it can conjure up. Many of the feelings that Smith described experiencing as a result of his unemployment, I had them too. So just like with his childhood, I could relate to many of the things he was describing. But unlike Smith, I never had the benefit of closure from knowing why it was I was unable to find employment during those 6 years. Where my ability to identify with Smith ends in regards to employment is where Smith seemed to be far too picky with what jobs he would take. The impression I was left with after reading his book is that he would only consider CFO jobs or similar jobs, and he wouldn't work for under 6 figures a year. He did speak of picking up some short-term contract jobs from time to tide him over, but largely I was left with the impression that he had the mindset that it was CFO or nothing, and that he would never even consider entering another line of work. I address this point with Smith also. Here's what he had to say about it. Anyway, directly quoting, again, this is what Smith wrote to me. Regarding taking a job that paid less than 6 figures, I'm not sure where you get this. During the 2.5 years from Chick-Fil-A to the 2020 interview, I found a few courses to teach at the local university and found some hours during doing financial analysis for a local firm. I just didn't make enough to pay all the bills all the time. The savings eventually became depleted, and then the food stamps helped. All right, that's the end of Smith's quote. Unlike before, I can't give him the benefit of the doubt here. That's what I took from the book. If I'm wrong, then I'm wrong, but I really don't want to go back and reread this book to confirm if I'm right or not. All I know is that during my period of long-term unemployment, I took jobs that had nothing to do with my experience or training. I took what was available to me. I even took demeaning and hellish jobs like working doors at strip clubs. I didn't want to do that work. I felt out of place. I felt I deserved better. The work sucked, and it sucked bad. I absolutely hated pretty much each and every moment of it. I totally get that Smith felt entitled to a job that matched his training and experience, and I get that he thinks his compensation should match his said credentials. I get it because I felt exactly the same way when I was working those doors at those awful clubs. But at that time, the strip clubs were the only places offering me employment, and I had to go where the work was. Smith left me with the distinct impression that he was unwilling to make similar sacrifices for himself or his family. That impression really left a bad taste in my mouth. Now, I'm not suggesting Smith worked a door at a strip club, all right? But I have to believe that, even with the chicken incident in his past, having a bachelor's degree from the U of A, University of Arizona, and a CPA cert had to make Smith worth something to someone. Even if it was going to be someone who wasn't going to pay Smith to maintain the 1%er lifestyle he was accustomed to, there had to be something out there for him. Smith also writes about his constant rejections from places he applied and even interviewed. He tells of places who wouldn't give offers due to the chicken incident, and he tells of firms who did extend offers and then rescinded them once they found out about the chicken incident. He told of one company who brought him in, had him working there a couple weeks, and then fired him once they found out about the video. All right, I gotta take another drink before I do this because another painful part. As painful as this is, I have to defend Smith once again. To the company that fired him 2 weeks in, and the others who extended offers and then rescinded those offers, I gotta say to you, not cool. Not cool at all. You should do your due diligence before you extend an offer of employment to someone. The video shouldn't have surprised any of you. It isn't as if it's buried within the deep within the bowels of the internet. A simple Google search of the 3 words Adam Smith Tucson gives you a whole assload of references to the chicken incident and links to the video. If you missed it, it's because you didn't even Google Adam Smith Tucson. Now, if you see the video and decide not to extend an offer, you'll get no criticism from me once again. However, once you extend an offer, or in one case, once you even hired the guy, I feel you're obligated to honor that offer. Once the offer is extended, so long as the applicant didn't lie about anything during the hiring process, your lack of due diligence is on you at that point. The right thing for these firms to do in this situation is to give the guy a chance, roll the dice, and see what happens. I mean, obviously, if you extended an offer, there has to be something about the guy you like, right? While I don't believe Smith fully understands what it is he did wrong at Chick-Fil-A, I doubt very seriously he's ever going to do something that stupid again in his life. And if he does, you can always fire him later. Once you extend an offer to someone and they accept that offer, in most cases, they stop looking for other jobs. They stop attending other interviews. They wind up whatever business they have in their life that has the potential to get in the way of the new job. Taking back a job offer isn't only a shitty thing to do, it causes potential inconvenience and setbacks for the job applicant. Preparing to start the job you offered the applicant took away from the time the guy could have spent exploring other opportunities. I strongly believe that how any firm handles their hiring processes speaks loudly to their character. To those firms that extended or retracted job offers to Smiths, or anyone for that matter, you really need to reevaluate how you treat people. All right. Defending Smith, that's rough, man. I don't like doing that. A few moments ago, I mentioned the third part of the book was painful to read. Well, that's not only because of Smith's inappropriate selectivity when it comes to what jobs he would accept, but also his entries from his journal writing class he took. Oh my God, they were so boring. Reading this part of the book was very difficult, but I really wanted to finish the book. So I figuratively played through the pain, I held on, I read all this crap, and I was relieved when this part of the book was finally over. The book winds up by saying that he's still looking for a job, but after reading the book, I have no idea what lessons he learned from his actions, if any. I am very disappointed in this book. The full title is $1 Million Cup of Water, Discovering the Wealth and Authenticity. So, based on what I already knew of the man and the chicken incident, and the secondary title of the book, I went in expecting a story about his being humbled, grounded him somewhat, and would perhaps serve to show him that he was grossly overpaid for what he did for work before the chicken incident, and that, most importantly, he should have never went to Chick-Fil-A in the first place. Well, Smith didn't learn any of those things by the time he wrote the book, and he still hasn't. Since authenticity was mentioned at the title, I was also hoping to see mention of his apology video, to Rachel, his admitting that it was bullshit at the time and that now he has an understanding of what he did wrong and maybe reissue his apology with sincerity. That didn't happen either. I was hoping he would express that he now understands what he did at Chick-fil-A was the exact same thing that the online lynch mob did to him and his family. But that just wasn't there either. Granted, Smith's actions at Chick-fil-A were far less severe than what the online lynch mobs did to Smith and his family, but the principle is identical. And about should have never having went to Chick-fil-A in the first place, he still hasn't learned that lesson, like I said. I addressed my disappointment of his lack of understanding of this concept, and Smith responded to that also. Here's what he said, quoting, "We certainly don't agree on what my most fundamental lesson was. I am proud for standing for equality. This was not an error. The way I went about taking this stand could have vastly improved, including not making it personal and public. Ignorance was at the core of Chick-fil-A's contributions to the anti-gay organizations. Ignorance to the fact that we are all equal to each other and don't need to be fixed if some of us are attracted to the same sex." All right, that's the end of his quote. Dan Cathy is a successful businessman. He's a Christian. He donated some money to Christian organizations. Religious people who've enjoyed success in business, far more often than not, make donations to organizations that further their particular religion's ideologies and causes. That's what they do. I can't believe he doesn't get this. This is the case in most, if not all, religions the world over. It's been going on for centuries, and it shows no time of ending anytime soon. If Smith made an effort to get and drink a free cup of water from every business who engages in this practice, he'd die of kidney failure long before he even scratched the surface of the list. I guess just because you went to college doesn't mean you're smart. I didn't ask Smith, and he didn't make mention of it in his book, but sometime I'd love to learn his definition of anti-gay. Chick-fil-A never turned away any business from gay folks. They never denied someone employment or promotion because they were gay. And to the best of my recollection, none of those things were even alleged. There's absolutely nothing to suggest that any gay person doing any sort of business with Chick-fil-A would have any tougher of a time than a straight person would. What the fuck is it that Smith thinks anti-gay is? It's another facepalm. Mass media in the last several years has had several stories of businesses explicitly not wanting to do business with the gays, and the gays insisting on the courts to assist them to force profit upon these businesses who hate them. If Smith wants to make an ass out of himself publicly berating someone, why doesn't he want to go to one of those places? No, I'm not suggesting he do that. In fact, I'm recommending the exact opposite. But it would at least make a hell of a lot more sense. Because those businesses that I talk about fit the definition of anti-gay far closer than Chick-fil-A ever has. Now this part, I'm admitting, just a guess on my part. I'm not a psychologist. I wouldn't even describe myself as educated or enlightened. But I have been an observer of human behavior for 4.5 decades. In that time, I've identified some patterns. And based on that, I think the day Smith went to Chick-Fil-A had nothing to do with gays or Chick-Fil-A itself. I believe, if only subconsciously, Smith was really lashing out at his religious whack-job parents. I believe had he been raised by more level-headed people, he would have never went to Chick-Fil-A that day. I brought this up with him too, and he responded to that. Here's his response. Let me drink again. Sorry, I'm doing a lot of talking here. My stand for human equality was for all people. And yes, when I was standing up for equality, I had lashing out to my past as well. This was evident in my attachment to being right and Chick-fil-A being wrong. His stand was for all people. Well, I'm a person. Don't do me any favors, Smith, alright? You certainly do not speak for me. But I will give him credit for admitting I was onto something there. Based on how dense he is with the rest of these simple concepts, I wasn't expecting him to grasp something more complex, but he did, and I was pleasantly surprised. After reading the book, and before preparing this video, I did some more research on Smith, wanting to see what he's up to these days. According to his Facebook page, he recently obtained a CFO position at a firm that has him working in Denver. It's fine with me, I guess. Even though Smith hasn't learned from his chicken incident mistake, I do believe he has more than paid for it, and he should be allowed to move on. But it's very difficult for me to sympathize with someone who doesn't admit what their mistakes are and why. I guess Smith is still trying to capitalize with this infamy he gained from the chicken incident. On his website, he describes himself as, I'm quoting here, an executive, author, motivational speaker, corporate workshop facilitator, and mindfulness business coach. Executive? All right. CFO? Sure, used to have that job at Vontae, right? Author? Well, he wrote the book that I'm talking about, so all right. Motivational speaker? Corporate workshop facilitator? Mindfulness-based coach? Are you fucking kidding me? I hope he's just talking out of his ass here trying to sell books, because I am absolutely dumbfounded at the thought of anyone paying Smith to talk to anyone about anything. But a fool and his money are soon parted, I suppose. So in closing about the book, I don't regret reading it. I had that morbid curiosity I was talking about, and reading the book satisfied with that morbid curiosity. Unfortunately, satisfying that curiosity is the only thing positive I can say came from reading the book. I wouldn't read a book again, and I recommend you don't read it either. But if you really want to, I may give you my copy. If you're interested, contact me. If you're the first one and you pay for the shipping costs, you can have mine. I certainly don't need it anymore. It's not as if this is one of the great American classics or belongs to the ages or anything. A few parting comments to Smith himself, who I'm sure he's watching this video. His ego won't let him not watch it. You're not motivational. You're not inspirational. You're not a hero. You're not a celebrity. You're just an arrogant, closed-minded jerk. Smith, if you ever mature to the point where you finally understand that you're no better than those who targeted you and your family, get back to us. I'd love the opportunity to dialogue you once you've truly discovered the, wealth in authenticity. Based on reading your book and your recent exchange with me, it appears you have a very long way to go to get there. To everyone else, I welcome any thoughts or reactions to this video you wish to share in the comments section below. I sincerely thank you for watching, and I wish you a good day.